but they're not punished if they don't. Because the first thing they say is they're supposed to be addressed to fast, become Muslims before they actually fast the month of Ramadan. Does that make sense? So they're not punished for not fasting, but they're punished for not accepting Islam. In the Hanafi method and the Shafi method, they're punished for not accepting Islam and not fasting. Okay, so one considers an obligation even for non-Muslims, and the other one doesn't. But even if a non-Muslim fasts, because they have like fast-a-thons at University of Washington, and I've seen people fast that are non-Muslims that join the Muslims and try being a Muslim. We had a guy in Yemen, he came to our school for 2 weeks. He was non-Muslim. He did everything the students do. He fasted with us, he prayed with us, we taught him how to do the wudu, he gave sadaqah, he was basically dressed like us. I even saw him do this in the salat. I was like, what are you saying? He's like, I say la ilaha illallah. He didn't have a problem with Muhammad Rasulullah, so he didn't actually become Muslim. But the principal, my teacher, was generous enough to allow him to live in the school for 2 weeks and still be with the Muslims. Now, unfortunately though, that doesn't count because he's not Muslim. If you pray and you're not Muslim and you don't pay zakat or you don't fast, it doesn't count. 2, a child under the age of puberty is not obligated to fast. 3, someone insane, we said, is not obligated to fast. 4, someone whom fasting exhausts because of advanced years or having an illness from which he is unlikely to recover. So this is called a chronic illness. Somebody who has a type of sickness that does not allow them to fast, maybe they have to take a medication every day, but they cannot fast on a daily basis. Even if they're young, because they have some major, maybe they have cancer, or maybe they have AIDS, or maybe they have diabetes or something like that, that doesn't allow them to fast every day. Because of a chronic illness, this person is excused. With the condition that it's unlikely for them to recover. If it's likely for them to recover, then they have to make up those days. If it's unlikely, then we'll talk about what they have to do to make up for those days, but it's not fasting because they're not going to recover. None of the above mentioned is obliged to fast or to make up missed days. So they don't have to make up anything. Though someone who misses a fast because of above, number 4, who misses a fast because above must give 0.51 liters of food for each fast day that he misses. So basically it's like this. If somebody cannot fast because they have a chronic illness, then they're not likely to recover, then they don't have to fast or make up the fast days, but they have to pay a mud, which is a handful of food for every day that they missed. A handful of food is defined right here as 0.51 liters. 0.51 liters of food for each day of fasting that they missed, they must give as sadaqah to the poor and needy Muslims. Does that make sense? Okay? Otherwise, someone who's insane, someone's a child, obviously none of these people have to make up any fast. But someone who has a chronic illness doesn't have to make up the fast, but they have to pay a mud for every day that they missed. Also, somebody who is older, somebody who's too old to fast because they're too weak, they don't have to make up any days, they don't have to fast, but they have to pay 0.51 liters of food for every day that they miss of Ramadan. That's the expiation for fasting. The following are not required to fast, though they are obliged to make up fast days missed. Make up according to our school, meaning that one fast a single day for each obligatory fast day missed. You fast one day that you missed because you missed it, you have qada. And the qada starts from puberty on. So if you miss fasting from puberty on, you have to calculate those months. So let's say, well, I wasn't fasting from 13 to 18. That's 5 years. You reached puberty at 13, and you started fasting at 18. You have to do 5 times 30. And you have to actually make up all those days that you missed from puberty on to when you started fasting. Because it starts at puberty. And paying the debt off to Allah is a primary obligation. So before you fast supererogatory, you can make them up in the winter when it's easy and you're breaking fast at 4:30, but we have to make up all of our fast as soon as possible from the time that we reach the age of puberty. Making up according to our school, meaning that one fast a single day for each obligatory fast day missed. Those who are ill, the illness that permits not fasting being that which fasting would worsen, delay recovery from, or cause one considerable harm with. The same dispensation applying to someone who needs to take medicine during the day that breaks the fast, and then he cannot delay until taking it until night. So basically, the people who have to make up a fast, or the sickness that you have to still make up the fast later, is if you have considerable harm by which fasting would make your sickness worsen. So being that the fast, which fasting would worsen, delay recovery. So if it delays your recovery, if it worsens your sickness, or cause one considerable harm, they can break their fast. They are excused if they're sick. This is not a chronic illness. This is a temporary sickness. You get the fever or flu in Ramadan. Okay? If this occurs, then you are excused to break your fast as long as if fasting is going to increase your sickness, if it's going to delay your recovery or cause you considerable physical harm, then you are allowed to break your fast. If you break your fast and you're expected to recover, then you have to make up that day after Ramadan. You have to make up that day after Ramadan and before the next Ramadan. Okay? If you don't make up the fast by the next Ramadan, it's considered a sin. And you have to still make up that day and pay a mud, 0.51 liters of food. Okay? So if you wait till the next Ramadan, women too who have their menstruation, they also have to make up their fast. It's excused, but they make it up after Ramadan. They have till the next Ramadan. If they wait till the next Ramadan, then they sin for doing so, and then they have to still make up the days, and they have to pay a liter, 0.51 liter of food as sadaqah because they waited till the next Ramadan as an expiation. So if you have make-up days, now is the time. We have a little over a week before Ramadan starts. So now is the opportunity to try and make up whatever you can before Ramadan comes. During the day that breaks the fast and that he cannot delay until taking at night. So if somebody also has a medication that they have to take during the day, then they're excused to break their fast to take that medication. However, they cannot, if they can take it during the nighttime, then they must do that during the nighttime. Otherwise, they can, if they have to do it during the daytime, break their fast. Okay? But if somebody can delay till night, then that's obviously obligatory. Okay? And so what does that person do? They still have to make up that fast. Unless that medication is a lifetime thing, they still have to make up that fast later on. Those who are traveling, they're also excused from fasting, and we'll get to what does that mean. What does traveling mean? A person who has left Islam, a murtad, is somebody who, if they fast, their fasting does not count, although they still have to make it up. So if somebody leaves Islam, they still have to make up the fasting that they missed, but it doesn't count because they're not Muslim. Or a woman who is in her menses or period of postnatal bleeding. So a woman in her menses or postnatal bleeding, she's got to make up all those days of fasting that she has after Ramadan. If the ill person or traveler take it upon themselves to fast, it is valid, though a fast by someone who has left Islam or a woman in menstruation or period of postnatal bleeding is not valid. So even if a woman who has her menstruation tries to fast, it doesn't count, it's not valid. It's actually considered haram for a woman who is on her menses to fast. It's considered obedience from Allah, which she is rewarded for if she does not fast during the month of Ramadan when she's on her menstruation. Because it's not allowed. But she still gets reward because she's just obeying Allah, who says you cannot fast while you're on your menstruation. A woman in menstruation or period of postnatal bleeding is not valid when not fasting on the day of Ramadan. If a Muslim becomes a non-Muslim becomes a Muslim, or an insane person regains insanity, or a child reaches puberty, it is recommended but not obligatory that they fast the rest of that day and make up their fast later. So if somebody is actually in the daytime of Ramadan, reaches the age of puberty, or somebody becomes Muslim in the daytime of Ramadan, or an insane person becomes sane, what is the ruling? Does anybody know? Huh? Anybody know?
They should
Huh?
start fasting, but that day will not count, and then we need to make up.
Yeah, so he says, if a non-Muslim becomes Muslim, when not fasting on the day of Ramadan, if a non-Muslim becomes Muslim, or an insane person regains insanity, or a child reaches puberty, is recommended, but not obligatory, that they fast the rest of that day and make up the fast later. So it's recommended they continue their fast and then make up the day later. A child reaches puberty in the daytime of Ramadan, recommended he fasts, but he doesn't have to. And then he makes up that day later. Similarly, if somebody becomes Muslim in the daytime of Ramadan. Similarly, if somebody becomes sane, then it's recommended to fast and then they have to make up that day later. A child who reaches puberty while fasting on a day of Ramadan is obliged to fast the rest of the day and is recommended to make it up. So a child who's already fasting and then reaches the age of puberty must continue to fast till the rest of the day, till the day is over. The child must continue to fast even when the day is over. Obliged to fast the rest of the day and is recommended to make up. A woman whose period ends during a day of Ramadan is recommended to fast the rest of the day, is obliged to make up that fast. So a woman whose period ends during a day of Ramadan, so she's on her period ends during the daytime of Ramadan. What should she do? It's recommended to fast the rest of the day, and she is obliged to make that fast up. And the fast days prior to a miss during her period of menstrual bleeding. So if a woman, breaks her, has her period in the daytime of Ramadan, she cannot fast the rest of that day, okay? But she still has to make that day up. So let's say she has her period for 7 days. So she's fasting during the daytime, she has her menstruation during the daytime, she has her period for 7 days, and then she becomes pure on the 7th, after 7 days, in the daytime of Ramadan. How many days does she have to make up?
8.
Only 8? It's a fiqh question, fiqh equation. Okay, she has her period. On one day, she has her period during the daytime of Ramadan. Then she has her period for 7 days. Okay, 7 days after. And then after 7 days, she becomes pure from her period in the daytime of Ramadan.
9.
Yeah. 7, 8, 9. Why? Because the day she became pure, she's got to make that up. Or the day she got her period, she's got to make that up. 7 days of her period. And then the day after 7 days, she became pure inside the daytime of Ramadan. She's eligible to fast. She's got to make that one up too. So actually 9 days. And the fast days prior to a miss during her menstrual bleeding, if the testimony of a witness that the new moon has been seen during the previous night is made during a day that was initially uncertain as to whether it was the first of Ramadan, then it is obligatory for people to fast the rest of the day and to make it up later. So in other words, if somebody sights the moon during the daytime of Ramadan, if they sight it, and they say to the people, we sighted the moon, then those people have to fast the rest of the day. So a testimony of a witness that the new moon has been seen during the previous night, that they got the news later, so it was actually seen the previous night, it is made during the day. So they tell the people during the day that they saw the moon last night. Nobody knows it's Ramadan. Somebody says, I sighted the moon last night, and they have eyewitness testimony that fulfill the conditions. Uncertain as to whether it was the first, then it is obligatory for the people to fast the rest of the day and make it up later. So nobody knows. Somebody says, I saw the moon last night. They're a valid witness. It's verified. And then they tell the people the next day. The people still have to fast that day because it's Ramadan. Okay? And they continue throughout the rest of the day. And then they have to make up that day later because it wasn't a complete day. A child of 7 is ordered to fast, and at 10, beaten. That's probably a mistranslation. It's probably better to say spanked. Spanked, not beaten. So a child of 7 is ordered to fast. It's based upon a hadith that is regard to salat and psalm and zakat. Anything that's obligatory in Islam as a fard, then we tell our children, we order them to do it at 7 years old. And if they don't do it by 10, then we spank them if there is benefit. If there is no benefit, then we do not spank them. Right? But there are conditions of spanking your children, even in the Sharia and Fiqh. It's not like beating them and with the belt and spoon and making them black and blue and bruised and scarred and sending them to a hospital. That's not what beating them means, okay? And again, this is for religion, and as Muslims, we regard religion as the greatest thing. People, they spank their kids because, they're disrespectful or because they do something to somebody else. We as Muslims respect the deen more than anything. So, a child is ordered at 7 to fast so that they're habituated by 10, and then therefore by the time they reach puberty. At 10, they are spanked for not fasting with the reservations mentioned. What are the reservations? 1, you cannot strike on the head. You cannot strike the face. You cannot strike the genitals. Okay? You cannot cause permanent marks, permanent scarring or marks. Okay? You cannot break bones, and you cannot cause blood to spill. These are all prohibited in Islam with your children, in spanking your children. Okay? So, other than that, at 10, if there is benefit for you spanking them, that they'll start fasting, they'll start praying, then you should do that. According to a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If there is no benefit, there is also a stipulation the scholars say, if there's no benefit, then it's better not to do that. You're just going to make it worse. Maybe he runs away in the free country of America. Maybe they just go run away to somebody else's, place. Excessive hunger or thirst, meaning likely to cause death or illness, are legitimate excuses not to fast. So if you have excessive hunger and thirst, where you're going to almost die or pass out or get really, really sick, these are legitimate excuses not to fast. Again, it requires that struggle and effort. It's not so much that, oh my gosh, I'm weak and I'm tired and I have a deadline at work, so yeah, that's not an excuse. It's when you're you think you're going to actually cause yourself death or passing out or some major illness, then you can break your fast. Even when they occur on a day one has already begun to fast, as soon as the fast becomes a hardship. Even when they occur on the day that one has already, so even if you start to fast, you can still do this. There's wrestlers in this culture that they will actually run and wear garbage sacks and lose so much weight and will not eat or drink for a day so they can make weight for the wrestling competition. There's actually one wrestler who died. He was in high school and he lost 17 pounds in one day because he wasn't eating or drinking and he was running around and spitting. That's what they do to lose weight. People do these things for sports. They don't do it for Allah. That's the sad thing. It is permissible not to fast when traveling, even when the intention to fast has been made the night before, provided that the journey is at least 81 kilometers or 50 miles one way, and that one leaves town before dawn. So if you are traveling in the Shafi madhab, you have to be traveling at least 50 miles one way to a destination. Once you cross the city limits, you are now considered a traveler. And you can break your fast as long as you're intending to travel 50 miles or more in one direction. Okay? Now the Shafi madhab, and this is different than the Hanafi, is you have to leave before Fajr in order for you to have the right to not fast, to be excused from fasting. But if you leave after Fajr has entered, you must fast that day even if you're traveling in the Shafi madhab. But in the Hanafi madhab, even if it's after Fajr and you're traveling, you're considered officially a traveler, then you do not have to fast. Okay? So there's a difference of opinion between the scholars. Now, in the Shafi madhab, if you're doing multiple travel, let's say you're traveling to the east and you have 2 stops. If you leave after Fajr in Ramadan, then you must fast that day. And again, traveling is not like it used to be. You don't have a camel, and you're riding in the desert for 3 days and 3 nights or something like that. Okay, it's not as hard as it used to be. We have air-conditioned planes. We have restaurants around us for iftar and suhoor. It's a lot more comfortable and easier than it used to be. But if you leave after Fajr, you must fast that day. But if you then connect to a flight that's the next day, you do not fast, and you don't have to fast the next day. Because you're now traveling before Fajr entered. And so on until you reach your destination, until you're within the city limits of the destination that you're trying to get to. Does that make sense?
Do you have to make up for that fast though?
Yeah. Any time if you have an excuse fast for traveling, you have to make up that fast after Ramadan and before the next Ramadan. The sooner the better, right? Because if you die, you don't want to die with having to make up fast. Okay? You don't want to die with having to make up salat either. You want to die debt-free from Allah. We're worried about paying our mortgages. We're worried about paying our bank accounts or loans or etc. Yet we're not worried about paying Allah His loan that we are indebted to.
And if we couldn't make up the fast, then we have to give the mud?
No, you have to make up. Oh, if you can't make up the fast because a chronic illness.
Before the next Ramadan?
Yeah, if before the next Ramadan you cannot make up the fast physically, the whole year you get sick, then yes, you would pay the mud. If you're unlikely to recover. If you're likely to recover, then you'd have to make up that fast when you're healthy. So we'll get to we'll get to this part. The sighting of the moon is coming up. Moon sighting and moon fighting. MashaAllah. It's one of the most divisive issues in the Ummah today. We will talk about it though, inshallah, in the next program. And we'll get as far as we can, inshallah. So, It says it is preferable for a traveler not to fast. Okay, so now this is a ruling about traveling. If one leaves after dawn, one is not entitled to omit the fast. We said that, right? If you leave after dawn, prayer enters, you must fast. It is preferable for travelers not to fast if fasting would harm them. If you are fasting and you're excused to break your fast, if you leave before Fajr, in Ramadan, if it's going to harm you, it's preferable for you not to fast in the Shafi'i method. Though, if not, then fasting is better. But if it's not going to harm you, fasting is better. Even if you're traveling, even if you're excused to break your fast, fasting is better if it's not going to harm you. Okay?
One question. Is there a difference between breaking a fast for traveling versus deciding altogether not to fast because you are planning to travel?
Not to fast, what do you mean?
So you said you could break the fast if you are traveling. Is it different from not fasting altogether because you were going to travel later in that day?
Well, if you leave before Fajr, then you don't have to fast, right? But if you leave after Fajr, you still have to eat your suhoor, make your intention, and fast if you leave after Fajr. Yeah. And in the Hanafi method, even after Fajr, you can break your fast. Right? So you'll know by Fajr, obviously, if you're going to fast or not. A woman who is breastfeeding a baby or is pregnant. So this gets into an issue of women who are pregnant while fasting in Ramadan. A woman who is breastfeeding a baby or is pregnant and apprehends harm to herself or her child may omit the fast and make it up later. So if a woman who's, and again, this is different from woman to woman. Some women have difficult pregnancies, some have light pregnancies. It's very different, right? And so if a woman feels that she's going to have harm come to herself or her baby while fasting, then she's excused to break her fast. But if she does not believe that there's not going to be significant harm that comes to her or her baby by fasting, then it's still obligatory for her to fast. And don't think this is far-fetched. There are many women, a majority of the women in Yemen will still fast even while being pregnant in the month of Ramadan. It has not shown or proven to cause any harm to the baby by fasting. Or even if a woman's breastfeeding, to fast, unless it does cause, there's no milk that will come out, or if she feels it's going to cause harm to her or her baby, then she can break her fast. She's excused to do so. And every woman's pregnancy is different. But if she's healthy and she doesn't feel there's no harm, then it's not going to necessarily cause harm to her child if she's breastfeeding or she's pregnant, and she still is obligated to fast if that's the case. And a lot of it comes down to the woman's discretion. What does she think? How does she feel? How is her pregnancy? How difficult is it? Does she think harm will come to the child or not? Okay? If she omits, and we're going to close with these last couple sentences, and then we'll take a break, inshallah. So a woman is breastfeeding, or feeding a baby, or is pregnant and apprehends harm to herself or her child, may omit the fast and make it up later. Though if she omits it because of fear of harm for the child alone, if she omits her fast because of fear for the child alone, not for herself, then she must give 0.51 liters of food in charity for each day missed, as an expiation in addition to making up the each day. So the summary of that is, if a woman, because she's pregnant or breastfeeding, feels she's going to harm herself or her baby, if it's she's excused to break her fast, right? Okay. If it's for only herself, then she's excused to break the fast, but she must make up that 1 day fast later on after Ramadan, and that's it. If it's out of fear of harm for her baby, I need to eat to breastfeed my baby. I need to eat because I'm pregnant for my baby. If it is out of fear for her baby, if she's fear harm will come to her baby, then she must make up that fast day later after Ramadan and pay a mud of food. Pay 0.51 liters of food in charity to the poor needy. Does that make sense? Okay? So fear for the child, she's got to fast an extra day, make up the day, and she's got to give the mud. Fear for herself, then she just makes up the day. Okay? Khair, we'll close there, inshallah. Okay, last question.
And if she couldn't make up the fast in either 2 years, then is she supposed to give the mood every year?
Yeah, so this is an issue in the Shafi method. If it actually is compounded. So if she has to make up the fast and she waits till the next Ramadan, she's got to make up the days. Okay, she's got to make up the days. If she doesn't, it's a sin. She's got to make up the days and pay mud, right? If it's the fast, she waits till the next year, she's got to make up the days. It's another sin, and she's got to pay 2 mud. And then the next year, 3 mud, 4 mud, 5 mud. It is compounded, but there's an opinion in the Shafi method. If she is poor and she cannot afford it, then it's just 1 mud for every day she missed. But if she can't afford it, then it has to be
every year.
Compounded, yeah. It's multiplied every single. Yeah. The mood is, but the day is the same. Yeah. Tayyib, we'll take a break inshallah, and then there'll be food and snacks, and Shah will close, and then we'll come back inshallah around 3 o'clock and start the moon sighting part of our program and the fiqh of seeing the moon inshallah by the grace of Allah. Jazakallah khair, barakallahu feekum.
Assalamu alaikum. As you know, there are snacks and tea that should be served on brother and sister side. Those are getting set up right now. I have a bunch of note cards. If you can think of questions that might take a little more time at the end for Q&A, we can pass these out. And then I just also want to reinforce the registration and the packets, inshallah.